on today's show, I'm breaking down Jon Gray having one of the best months of April any Rangers pitcher has ever had. Plus, Max Scherzer scratched from his second rehab start. We're talking about all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into the amazing performance by Jon Gray, Josh Smith continuing to dominate, and Max Scherzer getting scratched from his second rehab start. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Now, the Rangers beat the Nationals in the series opener 7-1, a game that was much closer than that for the vast majority of it. The Rangers were trailing after one inning, as it feels like they often are, based on, well, not really the hardest hit balls against Jon Gray, just a little infield single that C.J. Abrams, who's one of the faster players in all of baseball, having an amazing season for the Nationals, by the way. I mean, he's hitting almost 200, or almost 300, excuse me, with a 992 OPS, advances second on a stolen base after the infield hit, then a ground ball squirts through the infield, and the Rangers are down 1-0 in the bottom as they head to the bottom of the first inning. But after that, Jon Gray said, okay, that's enough of that. I don't like allowing base runners. I don't need to allow base runners. I don't really need to get that many strikeouts. He only had 3 strikeouts in this one, but went 8 innings, just 3 hits, just the 1 earned run, and 0 walks. His ERA is down to 2.48 on the season, and in the month of April, he was fantastic, because that gets to eliminate that first rocky start in March against the Cubs, where he just got, frankly, lit up quite a bit. But in the starts since then, he hadn't gone as deep into games, hadn't been as efficient. He had been very, very good on the strikeout numbers, very good about not allowing a whole lot of base runners, but hadn't gone deep into games until this one. But Jon Gray had the second lowest ERA in the month of April in Texas Rangers franchise history. The only other player to have a lower ERA in an April season was Rick Honeycutt, a 0.72 ERA back in 1983. Jon Gray comes in the second best April ERA for any season of any Rangers pitcher ever, with a 1.24 ERA in 2024. And, well, the third place, you might know him, a guy named Jacob deGrom, a 1.35 ERA back in 2023. Also, shout out Jacob deGrom for getting 10 years of MLB service time. Got some nice gifts from the MLB Players Association. Nice tweet from them and from the Rangers. 10 years is hard to do. 10 years of service time in the big leagues is very, very hard to do. It is an accomplishment. Players care a whole lot about it. So shout out Jacob deGrom. Hopefully we can get even more service time with him on the hill, absolutely dominating. Maybe he can have an 8-inning, 1-run performance, but he'd probably have more than 3 strikeouts than that Gray did in this one. But Gray was just so dominant, getting weak contact early in counts, being efficient. Only 99 pitches to get him through 8 innings. He could have had his second shutout since June, I believe it was the 9th last year. That masterful gem, one of the best performances we've ever seen Jon Gray put up. That was in a getaway game against the St. Louis Cardinals last year, where he went 9 innings, allowed just the 1 run on the solo homer, and got 0 runs of support. One of the more frustrating losses that the Rangers had last year. This year, he got some run support. He got some run support, all right, because Josh Pookie Smith is just a fantastic hitter. I'm going to keep saying it till it's not true, because right now, he is one of the Rangers' best hitters. He's got the magical Holy Grail 3-4-5 slash line, hitting over 300 at 317, on base over 400 at 417, slugging exactly 500 He got it because he had his second home run of the year. Also had a 2-strike hit against a very tough lefty in Mackenzie Gore. Gore has been fantastic this season. 7 strikeouts for him in this one, a 3.19 ERA on the season. Gave up a couple of runs, but the Rangers were solid with runners in scoring position, as they often are. They had some rallies. They had some key at-bats from key guys. Nathaniel Lowe working a 10-pitch at-bat into a infield single, which is not something you see very often. It ended up starting a rally, got him into scoring position with an Adolis Garcia single, and then up comes Jonah Heim, who is just the RBI king. The runners in scoring position king. Right now, he's got 18 RBIs, which is third most on the team. Adolis has 25. Marcus Semien has 20, which is so wild for the leadoff guy to be your second RBI guy. But Jonah Heim has 18 because when runners get in scoring position, this guy just hits. He is so good in these clutch situations. He was phenomenal last year. He's been excellent this year. 31 plate appearances with runners in scoring position this year. 2 of his 3 home runs have come then. He's got 17 RBIs of his 18. The only other one was a solo home run that he got without runners in scoring position, obviously, because that's what a solo home run is. But in those 31 plate appearances, he's hitting .333 with a .533 slugging percentage with runners in scoring position. An .888 OPS, whereas when there are no runners on base, he has a .435 OPS. So I think the mantra is just get somebody on base for Jonah Heim, and he's going to start hitting incredibly well. And this isn't just a small sample size of the 31 plate appearances this year. Last year, he was exceptional in these situations as well. Last year, in 126 plate appearances with runners in scoring position, he had 9 home runs, hit .375, on base of .421, slugged .705. That is a 11.26 OPS with runners in scoring position. There's just something different about Jonah Heim with runners on base in clutch situations. Heck, with the bases loaded last year, he hit .444 with a couple of grand slams, more walks than strikeouts, a 14.31 OPS in 24 plate appearances with the bases loaded last year. 14.31! That's bonkers. It's just absolutely bonkers. Oh, and by the way, he had a .542 on base percentage with the bases loaded, meaning more than half the time he was going to score at least 1 run because he was either going to walk or he was going to hit one of his 2 grand slams. Heck, in 24 plate appearances with the bases loaded, he had 26 RBIs. More RBIs than plate appearances with the bases loaded last year. Granted, it was 24 plate appearances, but that's nuts. That's just nuts. Jonah Heim is such an incredibly good clutch hitter that I think we don't realize it. I mean, we know that Adolis Garcia is a massive clutch hitter, but Jonah Heim deserves that credit of being that dude that you want up in the clutch situation, get runners on for him. Hitting him up higher in this order is helpful. He especially hits well against lefties and, well, just in clutch situations. So just get Jonah Heim in the clutch and he becomes Barry freaking Bonds. But Josh Smith just deserves all the love in the world for what he has been continuing to do in this one. Gets the start against a very, very tough lefty, which we'll talk about another lefty that's a regular in this lineup that didn't get the start yet again with a lefty on the hill. But he's this in second place on the Rangers in Baseball Reference WAR, and not by much. Marcus Semien is the top B-WAR leader for the Rangers right now at 1.6 B-WAR. Josh Smith at 1.5. Yeah, Josh freaking Smith. He's played in 29 of the Rangers' 30 games, and he has been just integral to this team. Getting his second home run of the year. I mean, the guy has just been everything the Rangers could have asked for and then some, and they've needed every single bit of it, as they've needed every single bit of Jon Gray's 8 innings in this one. Didn't have to use barely any of the pen. In comes Cole Winn for his, I believe, 6th appearance. Yes, 6th appearance, and he has 7 innings. No, excuse me, 5th appearance. 7 innings. Still has not allowed a single hit. Still, just the one walk, 7 strikeouts. I mean, Cole Winn might end up getting a no-hitter in his first 9 innings pitched in the big leagues. I mean, that's not how no-hitters work, but still, it's been so impressive. The Rangers had Kirby Yates warming, but they pile on some runs with the first home run of the year by Leody Taveras. They got some big hits by Marcus Semien getting his first triple of the year, Marcus Semien getting his 7th double of the year. I mean, it was just an everybody party from this offense, including Evan Carter, who came in to pinch hit for Davis Wenzel, got an RBI, got his 2nd stolen base of the year, and this was just a complete team effort against a scrappy Nationals team that's not bad. This is not a bad team by any means, and getting a couple runs off of Gore and piling on later on, getting this kind of start from Jon Gray, this is the kind of start that I've been waiting for Jon Gray, and he came up in a big spot for the Rangers, continuing to get further above 500, hopefully moving into May as they start getting healthier, to start getting a little bit of distance and closing the distance between them and the first place Seattle Mariners. Coming up, talk about a different lefty, Evan Carter, why I'm a little bit concerned that he didn't get the start against lefty, and we're going to talk about more about Max Scherzer missing his rehab start right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by DoorDash. It's never too late to show mom your love this Mother's Day with DoorDash. Surprise your mom with flowers, gadgets, and self-care essentials, all in one place, delivered right to her door. You can get thoughtful gifts that she deserves with the convenience that you need. Choose same-day delivery or schedule a week ahead for when flowers and gifts should arrive at her door with DoorDash. You can shop with savings that would make her proud. With a Dash Pass membership, you'll save a $0 delivery fee and reduce service fees on eligible orders from Dash Pass merchants that meet the minimum subtotal. Other fees apply. Terms apply. Get a Mother's Day gift as unique as she is with DoorDash. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15 plus on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now on DoorDash. That's promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks as you and the world's best players take on the game to a new level during basketball's postseason. PrizePicks has something from every kind of sports fan, from baseball to basketball to League of Legends and everything in between. You can pick LeBron, Shohei Ohtani, Connor McDavid, and Jude Bellingham all in the same entry. Testing your skills on PrizePicks this baseball season is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $100 with just a few taps. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types. That's what makes PrizePicks the #1 fantasy app. So download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Now, Evan Carter has done a lot of things really well during his short stint in the big leagues. He's hit for average, he has driven in runs, he's gotten on base, he has walked a lot, he has even hit for a lot more power than most expected, having 10 home runs in his first 50 games in the big leagues has been a surprise. But the one thing he hasn't really done so far is hit lefties. That is always a concern with really any lefty in baseball. As they come up, you think, okay, is this guy really going to hit lefties? Is this guy going to be able to be an everyday player? And, for Evan Carter, in the minors, he didn't hit lefties all that well, but to be honest, it was really difficult for him to get plate appearances. This is not just an Evan Carter thing. This is a general thing for players in the minors. We saw it with Jackson Holliday, the Uber prospect consensus #1 prospect for the Baltimore Orioles. He is a left-handed hitter, and that was the main reason that the Orioles said that he wasn't ready to start opening day on a big league roster, because he hadn't faced enough lefties. And Evan Carter hadn't faced all that many lefties in the minors, but so far, lefties that he's faced in the big leagues, he has not done well against. He finally got his first hit against the lefty in Atlanta. It was an infield single that he used his speed to beat out. Not a very hard hit ball. He's also worked a couple of walks in 27 plate appearances against lefties. He's also gotten on base with a hit by pitch against lefties, but overall, he's in 27 plate appearances, mind you. Very small sample size. He's hitting .042 on base of 148 and slugging 042 for a 190 OPS, whereas in 153 big league plate appearances in the regular season against righties, he's hitting 295, then on base of 392 and slugging 628. That is a 1,020 OPS. That is a 830 point OPS difference between lefties and righties. Now, Evan Carter is 22 years old. 21 years old. He's not even 22 years old. Wyatt Langford is 22. Evan Carter is 21. And I have all the faith in the world this kid will eventually figure out how to hit lefties. But seeing him not in the starting lineup 2 different days in a row, not even 2 days in a row, 2 games in a row, because the Rangers had a Monday off. On Sunday, there was a left-handed starting pitcher on the hill, and Evan Carter got the day off. You thought, okay, well, giving him a day off against lefty, that makes sense. That's, probably going to happen, at least a decent chunk early on. But then you go up against Mackenzie Gore, who is, again, another very tough lefty the Rangers had to face. And seeing him not in the starting lineup yet again made me a little bit concerned, because the way Evan Carter's going to figure out how to hit lefties is trial by fire. He's going to have to keep facing lefties. And yeah, it's been a bit of a struggle. There haven't been a whole lot of hard hit balls against lefties. But again, it's only 27 plate appearances. And this is not a trend that you really want to see with Evan. I think that the Rangers are going to give him more plate appearances against lefties, but the Rangers have a start yet again against another lefty on Thursday of this series. Mitchell Parker, the 24-year-old lefty for the Nationals, is the scheduled starter in the finale of this series. And if Evan Carter's not in the starting lineup that day, outside of like some kind of, injury or whatever concern there, I'm going to start to get concerned that the Rangers are deciding that, well, we're not going to be able to give this guy everyday plate appearances against lefties, and that would turn him into a platoon player, and that would, really lower the ceiling on what Evan Carter can't be. If he can't be an everyday player because he can't, hit lefties at all, or at least hit lefties fine, he doesn't even have to mash against lefties. Doesn't have to annihilate lefties, because the Rangers have, plenty of lefty mashers in their lineup. I think Adolis Garcia is going to be, he mashes everybody. And Josh Young is just dominant against lefties. And I think Wyatt Langford will start hitting everybody, hopefully fairly soon. And we've seen a season where Nathaniel Lowe was very good against lefties. The left-on-left matchup has been very good for opposing pitchers against these Rangers, because Corey Seager is not mashing lefties like he normally does. Last year we saw a down year of Lowe hitting against lefties. He didn't hit all that well in general, but the thing that made him so good, that made him a Silver Slugger in 2022, was that Nathaniel Lowe was actually better against left-handed pitching than against right-handed pitching. And I think Lowe will pick it back up and be able to hit lefties yet again this year, which was the main concern for the Rays, which is why they traded him, and the Rangers ended up looking very, very smart on that one so far. But Evan Carter needs time against these lefties. He needs to continue to see quality lefties, and you can't really send him down to the minors to get those plate appearances against lefties. Not that I think the Rangers are even going to do that, because there just aren't that many quality lefties in the minors. It's why the Orioles ended up calling Jackson Holliday back up, not only because he was crushing AAA and then got crushed in the big leagues, because the big leagues is very, very hard for everyone. It's not just Wyatt Langford who has struggled in his rookie season. It was ugly for Holliday, but he couldn't find that many quality lefties in the minors, because, the bar to be called up as a lefty pitcher to the major leagues is quite a bit lower than it is for a righty. There's just fewer lefties in general that can throw, big league caliber stuff. And if you're almost ready, then usually you're going to be called up, because it is hard to go lefty on lefty because you don't get that many plate appearances. And, some guys just see lefties well as a lefty and just mash them. Some guys don't, and it takes time. Evan Carter does not have that many minor league plate appearances in general. I mean, he doesn't have that many major league plate appearances either. He has 180 major league plate appearances. And again, he is 21 years old. And in the minors, he only has 1,134 plate appearances. And there were not that many of those that were against lefties. So I think he needs time. It's again, just 2 games in a row, and he did end up pinch hitting for Davis Wenzel and getting an RBI and getting a run scored, getting his second stolen base of the season. And he had one of the hardest hit balls, if not the hardest hit ball in this entire game. Yeah, it was the hardest hit ball at 106.6 miles an hour. So I'm not worried about Evan Carter, but it's just a trend to keep an eye on moving forward, especially since there will be, 3 starts against lefties in the same week. Actually, depending on who the weekend starters are against the Royals, we may see yet another one. I mean, I might see 4 starts against lefties. So just something to keep an eye on, as is Max Scherzer getting scratched from his rehab start. Coming up, we're going to talk about why that happened, why it's not a concern with his back, and just a case of the Rangers being extra cautious with their 39-year-old future Hall of Famer. Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that. But there is just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with your friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much more to get. Like unique stickers you can trade with your friend to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the board with, hilarious emojis to taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their very own unique minigames, like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Now, like I said at the top of this episode, Max Scherzer was supposed to make a rehab start on Tuesday night, coming back from back surgery on that herniated disc, but he was scratched due to not a back issue, but a thumb issue. And initially when I read that, I thought, okay, oh boy, not another thing with the 39-year-old, 3-time Cy Young winner, future Hall of Famer, who is way ahead of schedule in his rehab. But I thought, really? A thumb issue is what scratched him from his start? It turns out that thumb issue was the same thing that led to a chain of events where he ended up injuring his shoulder last year, where he tried to pitch through it. It was a little bit barking, as he said, quote, it was barking a little. And when he had a sim game back in Atlanta on April 19th, it was barking a little bit then as well. He said it was okay in the rehab start, but then once he was, throwing his bullpen, it was hurting a little bit more. So instead of trying to pitch through it like he did last year, where it ended up moving to the forearm and then ended up moving to the shoulder and leading to that teres major injury that made him miss the end of the regular season and not be back and not really ever be fully back and 100% healthy, but still did help the Rangers win the World Series last year. Instead of pitching through it, he said, okay, I take a little bit of anti-inflammatory medication. It's pushing back the start a few days. He's really frustrated by it because, again, he's like, I've worked so hard to be ahead of schedule on this back rehab that no one thought I was going to be back until June. And here I am, was already pitching at the end of April, looking to come back at some point in mid-May, which still looks like it's going to be the case. He said he was incredibly frustrated by it. The initial thought was that if he made that Tuesday start, then I believe it would be Saturday when he would have made his next start, his 3rd rehab start, which, again, he's supposed to be about 3 rehab starts is the expectation. So that rehab start will hopefully be by the end of this week. That is the optimistic goal, and I think that's what is going to be the case. Chris Young said he's not too worried of it spiraling into anything worse. Scherzer said he's not too worried. He's just frustrated that he didn't get to make that start on Tuesday. But again, it's looking like he is going to be, the target date is sometime in that Mother's Day weekend series in Colorado. That is the 10th through the 12th of May. It could be that midweek series against the Guardians when they are at home, when the Rangers are back at home the 13th through the 15th. But the initial target date was going to be one of those 2 doubleheader games on May 8th in Oakland. That is not going to be the case anymore. But the Rangers are probably going to need an extra starter to keep those guys on their pitching every 6th day as opposed to every 5th day rest, because doubleheaders are weird. The Rangers have had such a weird schedule and these midweek series early on. Having that 4-game set in Detroit with 3 straight day games that were on the weekdays was just really, really weird. And then this series in Oakland, the 6th through the 8th, the Rangers play at 8:40 Central Time on Monday. They play at 2:37 on Tuesday, and then a scheduled doubleheader on Wednesday to get the day off for travel from Oakland to Colorado, because whatever. This is just such a weird schedule of events for the Rangers, but the Rangers are probably going to need an extra starting pitcher on that doubleheader to keep those guys on their regular rest, to hopefully avoid overtaxing anybody in this rotation, because, again, it's going to be probably a month or so, maybe 3 weeks before Cody Bradford is back ready to rejoin this rotation. Then the Rangers will have to make some other kind of decisions, but if they call somebody up just for one day for the doubleheader, I think it's probably going to be Jack Leiter. He's coming off a phenomenal first start since being sent back down. 6 innings of 1 hit ball, 8 strikeouts. I believe it was 18 or 19 whiffs for him. And there was a very, very good feature by Sean McFarland of the Dallas Morning News in the Dallas Morning News that came out yesterday. And it was just a lot of in-depth information, talking with Jack Leiter, talking with the coaching staff, talking with the guys who, helped him, basically rebuild a lot of his mechanics, his mindset, all kinds of different things after basically a year and a half of it just being really rough to start his minor league and professional career. Starting him off in Double-A, we all knew was kind of an aggressive assignment, but Jack Leiter was billed as one of the most polished, big league ready starting pitchers out of the draft that we had seen in a long time, maybe even since David Price. But that ended up not necessarily being the case. There were some mechanical tweaks that he had to fix. The walks were a little bit of a problem at Vanderbilt, not quite to the degree that anyone expected, but there were some tweaks in his delivery, specifically with the plant foot. He was planting it a little bit too early, and that was leading to inconsistent releases. Just another one of those mechanical tweaks that he didn't have to make in college or in high school, because he was just so much better than everybody else. There was no reason to mess with anything. It's like, well, I can just dominate literally everybody by doing exactly what I'm doing, so I'm not going to change anything. But then you get to Double-A. You face off against professional hitters, guys that are much older, much more advanced, just significantly better than anything he had seen in high school or the SEC. And he thought, okay, well, I'm going to have to fix some things. And there was a lot of pressure on him, being Jack Leiter, being a guy who had been, hyped as a great pitching prospect since he was in high school, and then got even more hype coming out of Vanderbilt. He's got a dad who's Al Leiter, who was an all-star and a World Series champion in the big leagues for, 10, 15, however many years his dad pitched in the big leagues. And he also has a cousin that's in the big leagues, and an uncle that was in the big leagues. And there's just a lot of hype around Jack Leiter coming in as the number 2 overall pick to a system that hadn't developed starting pitching in, forever. And he starts in Double-A, and not just in Double-A, but in Frisco, which is one of the closest affiliates to a major league club that we have. I think the Sugarland Skeeters are the only one that are closer to their big league affiliate than the Rangers have to their affiliate. Actually, maybe San Jose with the Giants. But still, starting your big league career there with all eyes on you, everybody in the Metroplex knows exactly who you are, what's expected of you, and just learning to block out that noise and not just immediately trying to make the big leagues, that was a huge switch for him. Actually taking it pitch by pitch as opposed to just trying to get to the big leagues. That was what one of the mental skills coach talked about with Jack. It was like, stop trying to make the big leagues. Just go out there and go pitch a baseball game, because that's your job. It's not getting to the big leagues. It's go get this hitter out that you've got in front of you right now. Focus on what's right in front of you. Don't worry about what's, 2 years down the road, 3 months down the road, however far down the road. Because if you start worrying about that, then you're not giving as much energy to the task at hand. And this is such a results-based business that you cannot focus too far down the road. You got to just take it one batter, one pitch at a time. And so far he's been able to do that. I've just been really encouraged by what I've seen from Jack, from the way that he handled that bounce back. I mean, having this top prospect come up, make his major league debut, and then immediately get sent back down, which was probably the plan all along, unless he threw like 7 innings of, no-hit ball with like 9-10 strikeouts or whatever, which probably wasn't going to happen in his first big league start, even though it was against the Detroit Tigers, who are not Major League Baseball's most terrifying lineup. But just seeing him have this mentality, and there was this quote in there that really, I think, stood out when he was asked about what it was like for him to make his big league debut and then get immediately sent back down. Leiter had this to say, quote, "The initial reaction is like, you've worked so long for that day." Then he follows it up by saying, "No, I've worked so long for that day and all the days to come," end quote. That is a fantastic mentality for a kid to have, because he's right. He's absolutely right. Yeah, you have worked hard for that day, and it was a huge, mostly great day. I know the results weren't exactly what he wanted. We don't have to get into the whole Leo Taveras catch, no catch thing, whatever. It wasn't the best start for him, but being there for that day, getting it out of the way, getting his family there to celebrate, you made it to the major leagues. Now, go back down. You got some things to work on. You know what to improve, so go do it. And then go do it again. And then next time you get to the big leagues, maybe you'll get sit back down right away again. Like, if he does get called up for that doubleheader, will probably be the case. But it is an encouraging mindset to see from this kid. He's had some struggles which he hadn't had before. He has been the best player on basically every team that he's ever been on, every league pretty much that he's ever been in. And so struggles were not a thing that he dealt with. But baseball is all about failure and learning from this failure. And having this mindset is very, very encouraging to see from Jack Leiter. Now, there are just a couple other less fun notes about pitching prospects in general. Mark Church has a rotator cuff strain. He is out indefinitely. That is very frustrating to see after having a phenomenal spring. Was just the talk of the town in spring, him and Jack Leiter. Hate to see that for Mark Church. Hoping he is getting better sooner as opposed to later, but just got to heal and let that thing get better. Some other injury news from Kumar Rocker. He is throwing weekly 40-pitch bullpen sessions now with his entire arsenal. He's hoping to get back to facing live hitters sometime in June, which means July is probably the target date for his return to the mound. I am so excited to see Kumar Rocker back on the mound. Glad to see this good update. He actually is on a very similar, nearly identical schedule to Tyler Mahle, so this also gives us a little bit of an insight of what to expect from Mahle, of him maybe facing live hitters in June. The last update we got is that Mahle was throwing bullpens with his entire arsenal, so that is encouraging news because both Mahle and Rocker had their UCL repair surgery on the exact same day. So hopefully everything keeps going well for those guys as they are getting back. Hopefully they face live hitters in June, return to the mound in July, and look like the great pitchers that the Rangers know both of those guys can be. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.